look into Centers for Educational Justice and Community Engagement. First of all, we would like to emphasize that no third-party live streaming and/or long-form video recordings will be permitted throughout the duration of this event. This event is currently being live streamed on our YouTube channel at the Berkeley Forum and will be available a few weeks after this event takes place. So on behalf of if you would like to take a photo with the speaker after the event, please line up in an orderly manner along the two aisles of the venue and wait as you are called up. A designated forum member will take a quick photo for you. And as we have only until 8:30 p.m., please be kind and mindful to others waiting. Thanks for your patience and understanding. We would also like to give a big and sincere thank you to the Cal Women's Swim and Dive team for partnering with us for this event and contributing to our event outreach. With all that being said, I will now pass the floor to Carolyn Nguyen and Erica Fenio, our event managers, to introduce our speaker and begin our event this evening.
We're the event managers for this event tonight. We're super excited to introduce our speaker tonight. Missy Franklin is a 6-time Olympic medalist, 5-time Olympic gold medalist, competed in the 2012 and 2016 Olympics. She made waves on the national stage or world stage in the 2012 London Olympics, capturing 4 Olympic gold medals and setting a world record in the 200-meter backstroke. When she swam at Cal, she won numerous NCAA championships and also helped lead Cal to become national champion.
Then, after retiring from competitive swimming in 2018, Missy now uses her platform to advocate for mental health awareness and speaks openly about the importance of mental resilience, drawing from her own journey of overcoming challenges both in and out of the water. Now, please help me in welcoming Missy Franklin to the stage.
I'm gonna do that all night. This is my first time being back since I left. It's been 7 years. How crazy is that? Everything is different.
Alright, hi everyone. My name is Miriam. I'm a senior studying cognitive science, and I'll be the moderator for today's event. Thank you so much for joining us today, Missy. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's such a pleasure.
Yeah. And quickly before we begin, if any audience members have questions, please save them for the end, as we'll be having an audience Q&A. So I'd like to start with your beginnings in swim, which you went into at a very young age when your mom placed you in classes to teach you about water safety. At 5, you entered competitive swimming, and by age 13, you had your Olympic trials debut. What were some of the early moments in your childhood that confirms what would be a lifelong passion for you?
Yeah, well, you mentioned a lot of them. So I'm actually Canadian, so a lot of people I'm a dual citizen. So both my parents were born and raised in Canada. And so my mom never learned how to swim because she's very, very far east in it's called Nova Scotia. And you do not want to swim in the water up there. And so she never learned, and still to this day, she's terrified of swimming, and she did not want to pass that fear on to me. And I'm so grateful for that, because I do a ton of work now with learning to swim, and the statistics show that if the parents don't know how to swim, there's only an 18% chance that the kids will. So it truly is a generational fear that's passed down. And so I'm so thankful that my mom decided to overcome her own fear and put us in a mommy and me class at our local YMCA when I was 6 months old. And I just absolutely fell in love with it. I was the baby that was getting dumped under the water and coming up laughing and giggling. And so they put me in summer relief swimming, and I was hooked. I did that, and then when I was around 7 years old, I started doing it year-round, and I think it just took off a lot quicker. And I did every other sport too, which I'm so thankful to have had had that experience because I love sports and all the lessons that it teaches us, and it showed me what I liked about things and what I found challenging and what I maybe didn't like as much. And swimming to me, I think what really kind of clicked was that no matter how my day was going, no matter how I felt going into practice, I always felt better leaving practice. And that to me was like such an aha moment of, it's of course great for your physical health, but for my emotional health, for my mental health, like something about being in the water just healed me and it brought me joy. So I think my parents saw that, and then apparently it was just what I was meant to do because I started to get quite good quite quickly and was at my first Olympic trials at 13, which was such a surreal experience. So to be 13, and I know you guys had Natalie Coughlin here, you had Brian Murphy here, so I'm, as a 13-year-old, I'm at Olympic trials with Natalie Coughlin. Like, her poster is on my wall back home, and all of a sudden I'm standing next to her in the warm-up pool, and Michael Phelps is there, and Nathan Adrian is there, and it's just like, I can't believe that I'm in the same place that they are. And it gave me that moment of, I might be able to do this. Like, I know I'm not gonna make the team right now, but in 4 years, I'm gonna be super old and mature. I'm gonna be 17. So I'm gonna have a way better chance then. But I left that meet thinking, okay, if I wanna be an Olympian, I actually think I can do it.
Absolutely. And developing as a young athlete, as you said, you compete against swimmers, some of whom you had known for years and shared lanes with, and others whom you looked up to for years. How did the sense of camaraderie and competition with your athletic peers evolve as you all advanced?
Gosh, that's a great question. My teammates have always been my favorite part about my sport, and that was such a huge reason of why I wanted to swim in college. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about that too, but a lot of people think of swimming as an individual sport, which I understand, but I always counter that with, if you asked any swimmer if they could swim 2 to 4 hours a day by themselves in a pool, they would all look at you like you were crazy. There's no way that we could do that without our teammates, even if we're only having 10-second conversations on the wall between intervals. And they just are what brought me so much of that joy and love that I had from the sport. They were my best friends. They were who I spent almost all of my time with. They pushed me, they encouraged me, they supported me, they motivated me on days where I was lacking that motivation myself. So I think for my teammates, they were a mix between my best friends, my inspirations, and also my role models. So it was really special for me as I grew within the sport to go from being the 13-year-old that had Natalie Coughlin on her wall to being on a relay with her, and how that changed as well. So I'm just incredibly thankful because I wouldn't have had the experience in my sport without the teammates that I had.
And you had a dynamic career swimming in national, collegiate, and Olympic races. How did your relationship with the sport as a whole change when you began competing at top levels?
It's very different, and I'm sure it's very different now with name, image, likeness. That was not something that I had when I was competing, so I can't even imagine now that, you know, being a collegiate athlete and how that changes your feelings towards your sport as well, which I'm so glad that we have it, but it does change things. So I think for me, it was a lot bigger change than I was expecting when swimming went from my hobby and my sport to my job. And it was something that I became a professional at, and all of a sudden I had sponsors and I was doing commercials, and the pressure started to grow with that a lot. And I don't know if I was prepared for that as I thought that I was. So that took a pretty big toll on me, and I think I started to let the pressure and the fear of disappointing people really get to me. And that started to take my love away a little bit, which I'm not sure if anyone in this room has ever felt like that, but I think when you operate sometimes out of fear as opposed to passion or joy, it can really impact not only your performance itself, but just the experience that you have doing it. So whenever I swam and it was for joy and for love, I had so much fun. And then when I was swimming out of fear and when I was swimming under those pressure and expectations, that same joy just definitely wasn't there anymore. So that was something towards the end of my career that I had to work really hard to get back, of trying to remember that little 5-year-old girl playing mermaids, you know, in the water and doing sharks and minnows at Saturday morning practice just to get donuts after. Like, that was who I was trying to channel towards the end of my days in my sport, because that's how I wanted to leave the sport, was with that love and joy.
Absolutely. And you've been very vocal about the pressure and struggles that come with being a professional athlete. And there was a time when you were diagnosed with anxiety, depression, and eating disorder before the 2016 Olympics. As an athlete, public figure, and more, in what ways have you found mental health and self-care to be important in your journey?
They're critical. They're not just important. They're the journey, in my opinion. And I'm so thankful that we are living in a time where this is a conversation that we're having, and that we have so many amazing people that are talking about their journeys and their experiences, because even though our journeys may not be the same and we may not have experienced the same things in our lives, oftentimes we've experienced the same feelings. And I think if you just have that understanding that you're not alone, and that what you're feeling is completely normal, and that there's other people that are experiencing it too, it immediately just makes the situation even 1% better. Because I think feeling alone in that is always the hardest part. But I quickly learned, as I was talking about with the pressure, that if there was no joy in what I was doing, the success was not going to be where it needed to be either. No matter how hard I worked, no matter how hard I trained, I couldn't push past not being mentally healthy and mentally fit. And that's such a huge part of it. You can be in the best physical shape of your life, but if you get behind a block and you're not mentally healthy, none of that matters. And so I really began to realize the importance of that. And that was, again, part of my major focus towards the end of my career. And now so much of what I try and spread awareness of for our mental health is the importance of balance. Because I think I got to a point where swimming became my identity and my entire self-worth. And that happens, I think, more frequently than a lot of people talk about. Again, we're talking about it more. It doesn't have to be swimming. It can be school. It can be your job. It can be your position in a relationship. But sometimes when you put so much of your self-worth into one thing, and then that one thing starts to go wrong, it can really impact you, and you can really start to question what your worth is and what you have to offer. So when swimming started to go wrong for me, I had no idea who I was. Like, I didn't know what I had to offer the world besides swimming backstroke. And so that journey, as painful as it was so eye-opening and so enlightening for me to learn that there is so much more to me than just who I am as a swimmer. And it's been really cool to see how that has impacted other areas of my life now. Being 6 years post-retirement, we have a 3-year-old daughter at home and one in my belly. And I've noticed it's really interesting how easy it is to fall into having a mom become my entire identity. And I love being a mom more than anything in the entire world. But I'm so thankful that I have that experience to realize I can't put all of my self-worth just into being a mom, because there's some days where being a mom is really hard and it may not go perfectly, and that doesn't take away from my self-worth, because I know that apart from being a mom, I'm a wife, and I'm a daughter, and I'm a mental health advocate, and I'm a women in sports advocate, and there's all these other layers that I've done the work to now understand the importance of balance. And no balance in my mind is ever perfect. It's always going to ebb and flow, but because of the lessons I learned throughout my swimming journey, I feel like I'm able to find that balance a lot easier in my life now.
Thank you so much for sharing those insights. And as you said, the challenge of knowing your self-worth and knowing it beyond achievements or results is something that everyone struggles with, not just athletes. So can you give us a little more insight into the strategies you employed or the type of reflection that you made in order to ground yourself again?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of it was reaching out for external help because I think there is a lot of times where we think that we can just do it on our own. And especially as an elite athlete, that's definitely the mindset we tend to have is I'll just figure it out, I'll push through it, I'll do it myself. And it got to a point for me where I knew I couldn't do it by myself. So that was when I started working with a therapist, which I still do. So when I started talking to my family members more about it. And it was a lot of journaling, it was a lot of talking, but it was just a lot of, I think, again, coming back to myself and realizing what is it that makes me feel like I'm fulfilling a passion or fulfilling a purpose. And that's where I started with, okay, well, that's what makes me me, is when I can look at myself at the end of the day and say, did I do something that made a difference today? What were those things and how can I do them again tomorrow? So it's a lot of knowing who you are, but in the moments where you're struggling with that, surrounding yourself with the people who are there to remind you who you are.
Thanks for sharing. And there were a lot of points in your career where you were at a crossroads and had to make a challenging decision of how you would move forward. One of them was in 2013 when you decided to turn down prize money and endorsements in order to join the NCAA and competitively swim at a university. What were your considerations before making this choice, and how did you finally land on Berkeley as a school you would be at?
So it was a really hard decision. That's why I said before, I'm so glad that athletes don't have to make this decision anymore. I'm very bitter about the Justin Bieber care package I had to send back. I'm still really hoping that I get that. I don't think that situation's gonna hold on that one. So it was really tough. If you don't know me, for those of you that do, I'm a massive people pleaser. Like, if everyone around me is not happy all the time, I am not happy, and I really hate disappointing people. So this decision was actually at 17 years old, coming off of London, which was my first Olympics. I had gotten 4 golds and a bronze. It was like the dream Olympic experience. And I came back and I made this decision, which took a lot of time and effort. It was a lot of hard conversations with my parents and people around me, helping me understand what exactly it was that I was turning down. And I made this decision and I got a ton of backlash for it. And for someone that hadn't faced a lot of criticism in her life, I was like, I didn't know how to handle it. Like, I was distraught that people were upset about this decision that I had made. But that also confused me because I was like, how does this affect you? Like, why are you upset about this? This is my life. But it was a really good beginning lesson in that no matter how hard I try, I can't make everyone happy all the time. And ultimately it does come down to just choosing the decisions that are best for you and for your family and for the people that are around you. But in my mind, I just thought that swimming in college was an experience that you couldn't put a price tag on. And I knew the girls that I would swim in college with were going to be the girls that I got married with, that stood by my side as bridesmaids on the day that I got married, that were going to support me as I was going through becoming a mother. And all of that has been true. And that was how I picked Cal. The team here was so special. And it was just a place where I walked in and I already felt like I had a home. And on a campus where undergrad is now 40,000 people, to walk in and feel like you already have a home somewhere, I think is so special and so beautiful. So that was what I fell in love with, were the girls and the women that were gonna be on this journey with me. And there's something so special about working towards your own goals, but there's something really special about working toward one goal as a group together, and everyone showing up day after day, fighting for the same thing. And then especially if you make it there, getting to celebrate and have that moment with everyone, like winning the national title with that team is just one of the happiest memories, not just from my career, but from my whole life, because of what we went through to make that happen, and the fact that we did it together and how special that was. Also, I heard the food here was great, so.
And as you said, the relationships that you've made while swimming, and especially at Cal, are relationships that really last. Can you give us a few stories about the connection that you found in the swimming community, even after retiring?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I mean, there's so many. So I mean, one from here is, for anyone that knows me when I was here, I had the same roommate for all 4 years. We were attached at the hip, and she had the audacity to move to London, which is the furthest we've ever been away from each other, but she is still one of my absolute dear friends to this day. She was the maid of honor at our wedding. She flew out after we had our first daughter, and she has just been someone that has been by my side through everything, absolutely everything. And then just the swimming world in and of itself is really small, so people have a way of coming back into your life. And there was someone that I swam with growing up that recently moved to Nashville, and we've reconnected, and she's now pretty much an aunt to our daughter and one of my best friends. And then one of my fellow Olympic teammates, same thing, moved to Nashville with her husband, and we reconnected, and now we have a podcast together that we get to do, which is so special. Stay involved in the swimming space, so it's really amazing how these relationships grow with you throughout your life.
And I want to talk a little bit more about the podcast that you were talking about. It's called Unfiltered Waters, and you're a co-host with Katie Hoff. And this podcast features candid conversations to discover the person beneath the athlete. A few months into this project, what are some of your major takeaways from the interactions you have with other athletes?
Well, first off, don't just say, hey, we should start a podcast. It's a lot harder than it looks, folks, but we have loved it. And that is the whole point of it. I think a lot of us feel, well, I'll speak for myself, when I watch like a sports documentary, like when I watched Simone Biles Rising, when I watched Sprint before the Olympics and got to know all the track and field athletes, when you feel like you are getting to know an athlete as a person, I just feel more emotionally connected to them. Like I get more invested into what they're doing and into their competition because I feel like I know them. And so it just automatically makes me cheer for them and want to know what's going on and be more invested into the sport. And so that's a huge part of what we wanted to do is let's really break down these walls and create such a safe environment that these athletes can come in and we can really get to know them as human beings and not just the people that we necessarily see on TV or that we see competing. And it's just given us the most beautiful conversations. And I think that's been one of my greatest takeaways is it doesn't have to be in a podcast studio, but if you can just create a safe place for someone to talk, it's amazing what you can learn about them and what you can learn about their stories. And I just feel so fortunate to be in a situation where I get to sit and hear other people's stories and what they've been through and that they feel open and vulnerable enough to share that information with us and with our listeners. So it's been a really wonderful experience, and I'm so thankful. It's been a fun way for us to stay involved in the sport and also get to know athletes from other sports as well as we start to branch out a little bit.
And you've stayed involved in swimming in a myriad of ways. One of the most recent at Paris, in these recent Olympics, you were a correspondent for Yahoo Sports, providing coverage and analysis for the swimming events. How was the transition into your new role at the Olympics, reporting on the performance of swimmers rather than being in the water with them?
Very different. We were talking about Paris before we came out. Well, we found out we were pregnant a week before Paris. So Paris, I was miserable. I was so sick. I was so tired. And I was on Yahoo every night like, hi guys, welcome back to finals. I was dying and couldn't tell anyone about it. But it was still like the experience of a lifetime. I wouldn't have changed anything. It was so many different mixed emotions because it was my first Olympics not competing. So actually being back and just getting to watch it. And in a way, it was very healing because I think for the first time, which this might sound crazy, but I understood what a big deal it was. Like kind of from the outside, actually being in the stands watching it happen, I was like, wait a second. Winning an Olympic gold medal is like a really big deal. Like it's a really cool thing. And it finally kind of just got to settle and be like, oh, I did that. Like that was a cool thing that I did. And to be able to experience it, especially with my husband, and to bring our 3-year-old daughter there, it was just so full circle. But it was really wonderful. I think I still feel such a passion for continuing to grow our sport. And so for Yahoo to want to bring us on as correspondents and bring awareness and attention to the games, to the athletes, and the amazing things that they were doing was really special. So it was a crazy time. It was so hectic, but we had the time of our lives, and we did get to sneak away one day to Disneyland Paris. We took our daughter, which was so fun, and it was beautiful, and I feel very thankful that I've been able to stay involved in the sport, and it's just been quite a ride to see how my position within the sport has changed.
And so much of the pressure that athletes face originates from the exposure and intrigue that media coverage brings with being in sports. Have any of your experiences competing in the public eye informed your approach to your media duties with Yahoo?
Oh my gosh, so many. And not even media with Yahoo necessarily, because the stuff we were doing with Yahoo was awesome. It was very much just like surface level, recappy, like if you miss finals, here's what happened, which is why I loved it so much. But I think actually when it comes to the podcast and when we try and provide a space, I think it's so important for us to go in without our own agenda and to make sure that we're giving the athletes a chance to share their story the way that they want to share it without us implying anything. Because I think there were many times throughout my career where I walked into an interview or a situation where I could tell that they were trying to get something out of me, or that they had almost already written the piece and they were just trying to get me to fill in the gaps. And that kind of just feels like you've lost control a little bit, which is never a good feeling. And so I think it's hard, but trying to control the narrative as much as possible so that it's your narrative. But the media is the media. I mean, it's also their job to try and bring attention and awareness. Like for this summer, for example, they built up this massive rivalry between the USA and Australia in swimming. Y'all, that's always been there. Like, that is not a new thing. Like, we have been rivals since the dawn of time, but we were all getting such a kick out of it that this summer, like, that was the big story that they wanted to bring attention to. So that was what they were honing in on. And what did that do? It started to pit, you know, in the public's eye, USA and Australian athletes against each other, when in fact everyone is such great friends and they're really great competitors. So then when we have the USA swimmers and the Australian swimmers on the podcast, it's so nice to be able to give them a space to be like, no, I love her. Like this is, we love competing against each other, we love learning from each other. And so it's kind of funny. Part of it, you just kind of have to laugh and be like, they're gonna do what they're gonna do, but also know that your voice has power and that you have control in the narrative and over your own story.
And as you described, the media can often be misrepresentative and misconstrue the reality of things. Female Olympians.
I feel bad if anyone's a media major. Like you guys are great. You're great. We still need you. I promise.
But yeah, female Olympians often receive significantly less media visibility compared to their male counterparts. From your experiences as an athlete to a media correspondent, what underlying issues shape the public perception of women's athletics?
Yeah, so I think it's wild, and a lot of people didn't realize this, but this summer was the first time we've ever had gender parity at an Olympics. And that is such a massive deal, and yet it's also so mind-blowing that this is the first Olympics that we have had gender parity at. And so I feel incredibly grateful to be in a sport where I do not think there's a lot of inequality between men and women. I feel like it is quite fair when it comes to opportunities and interviews and media time, because it truly is so based on performance. There are many sports where that is not the case. And so I just feel so called to still continue to do work in that environment for those sports and for those women athletes that are not receiving the same amount of time, the same amount of compensation, or the same amount of opportunities as their male counterparts. And especially now, soon to be a mom to 2 daughters, that has like really fueled that fire as well, that whatever they decide they want to be when they grow up, if I can do something now and today to make sure that they have that opportunity, that to me, like, what greater work could I possibly be doing? So I think it comes down to a lot of change that still needs to happen, but at bottom line, I think it really comes down to women supporting women as well, and making sure that we're doing whatever we can to help get each other's stories out, and making sure that other women are getting the opportunities that they deserve.
And as you said, as a mother, you're really hoping that the future of swim will be a much better place and environment, and all athletes will have better opportunity and more of a focus on mental health. Can you tell us a little bit more about the changes and progression you want to see down the line in swimming?
I mean, again, with swimming, I feel so fortunate because I feel like we're in such a good environment, but I feel like there's always room to grow, and there's always room for those amazing opportunities, and especially when it comes to mental health. We've had some amazing advocates over the years. We've had Michael Phelps, we've had Allison Schmidt, we've had Caleb Dressel, like so many amazing swimmers that have come out and talked about their journeys. And if we can keep having those conversations, I think my ultimate goal is that we can't prevent everything, but if we can start helping athletes understand at an early age about the importance of their mental health, and about when they can start to notice that they're putting too much pressure on themselves, or that they can start to feel their mental health slipping, how can we help them know when that's happening so we don't get to the point where it's lost and they really have to fight their way back from it, and we can help them understand earlier that their whole identity is not their sport or what they do, and just give them that better sense of who they are and their identity. Like, that's what I would ultimately want for my girls more than anything, is that no matter what they do, they understand that there's so much more to them than just that one thing. So I think continuing to have that conversation so that we can create the healthiest environments possible for not just professional athletes, but for age group athletes, and not even athletes at all, but just for human beings in general, and just making sure we're there for each other and supporting one another through all of that.
Thank you so much for sharing. So now I'd like to go back and discuss your time at the Olympics in swimming, 2012. You achieved sweeping success in the backstroke, even setting a world record in the 200-meter heat in London. At these athletic frontiers, when even milliseconds determine who can bring home gold, how would you describe the rigor of your training at the time?
Rigorous, very, very rigorous. It's a lot of work, of course, but in my mind, when you're doing something that you love, sacrifices never feel like sacrifices, because you know you're doing something that is bringing you joy and you feel like you're fulfilling that passion. So again, it doesn't have to be sport. It can be academics. It can be hobbies. It can be theater. It can be so many different things. But yes, I was training a ridiculous amount, and it's a full-time job, right? It's not just the time I'm in the water. It's how I'm recovering. It's my nutrition. It's my sleep. It's everything in between. But I loved the process of it, and I think if you can learn to love the process, that's 99% of the journey, right? The destination is only that 1%. So if you can learn how to fall in love with the day-to-day and everything that comes along with getting to your mountaintop versus just falling in love with the mountaintop, I think that makes it a really special and fulfilling journey. So I was so thankful that I just enjoyed the work I was able to do. And like I mentioned at the very beginning, a huge part of that was just the people I was doing the work with, the teammates, the coaches, the trainers, that just brought joy. So even on the hardest training days, you were laughing and you were smiling. You might be crying too, but you were still smiling because you had these people around you. You were reminded, I get to do this. I don't have to. And not everyone has the privilege of having the opportunity to get better at what they love every day. And so that wasn't something I ever wanted to take for granted.
And a large part of the athletic journey, unfortunately, is injuries and coming across obstacles that you can't overcome immediately, obstacles that take time. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you were able to not only physically rise above in the face of injuries, but also emotionally heal when you come across an obstacle like that?
Well, I was only able to heal from all of my injuries because I had the best trainer ever of all time who healed me from all of my things. But no, truly, the support system when you're going through an injury is massive. And it is something I experienced a couple times throughout my career. And you mentioned it's almost more taxing on you emotionally than it is physically, because as someone that is very driven, when you physically are not able to do something that you are normally able to do, and you have to be patient in the process of healing and understanding that it might look like one step forward and 2 steps back, it can be so frustrating to feel like you're not making progress when essentially your whole career, the point is to make progress. So I think having that emotional support during that time is super important, but those are also the times where you learn to listen to your body, where you really learn to figure out, what do I need today? What is my body telling me I need? And I ended up having to retire due to injury, which was so hard, because I think whenever you have to leave something not on your own terms, it's really difficult, and having to make that decision with my mind not being done, but my body being done, was really, really hard, because there was still so much more that I wanted to do in the sport. There was so much more that I felt like I was capable of doing. And so that took a while to recover from as well. But I think a lot of that emotional healing just came from gratitude of what I was able to accomplish and what I was able to do into the sport. But I think whenever you're dealing with injury, or just in general in life, when you're dealing with a setback or an outcome that isn't what you expected, just finding that emotional support system that's going to help get you through it.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And many young swimmers here see you as a role model. What is one piece of advice you'd offer them that you wish you had known when you started?
The one piece of advice I always give is just that a happy swimmer is a fast swimmer, but replace swimmer with whatever you want. I am a clearly very happy person, and positivity for me has always just been like the foundation of my life. Like, I just want to go through life being happy and being grateful for everything that I've been given and this wonderful life that I have. So I am not the person you want to come to if you are looking for a not optimistic take, because I will give you always the glass half full experience. But that's for me, again, talking about, finding joy in the whole journey in and of itself. I think we are so much more successful, but also so much more fulfilled when we're just simply finding happiness in what we do every single day. So try not to let that get too far away. Obviously, there's times when the work is so intense and really hard where you're not going to feel happy all the time. But if you're rooted in that happiness and whatever it is that you're doing, you're never going to be too far from home.
Thank you for sharing. And I want to go back to your time in college, where a large portion of your happiness lied not in swim, but in education. After your time at Berkeley, you finished up your studies at the University of Georgia with a degree in religion. You've discussed how your faith has positively affected your interactions and even encouraged you to have a family. How, if at all, did your college education, as well as your faith, influence you throughout the changes in your career?
Oh my gosh, well, it's been quite a journey. So I grew up in Denver, and I went to an all-girls private Catholic high school, and then I came to Berkeley with co-ed bathrooms. So that was quite the switch, and was so thankful when I was here to find Athletes in Action, which was a group that I was heavily involved in, which is a group of Christian athletes, and I felt really at home there, and it was a place for me to practice and grow in my faith while here at Berkeley. And then to go to Georgia and then be able to actually end up getting my degree in religion was wonderful, because one of the many things that Berkeley helped grow and facilitate in me was my appreciation for diversity. And so I really wanted to learn about every religion, because when else was I going to have that opportunity? So I felt so fortunate that I got to learn about all the different major religions and have an appreciation and a joy and a love for all of them. And my faith has been a huge part of my entire life, but again, as right up there with joy, and gratitude is just the foundation of how I try to live my life. And it got me through and continues to get me through a lot of things. But I think as you mentioned, anxiety is still something that I struggle with a lot. And so one thing that I still am working on quite a bit to this day is not worrying about what's to come and what the next day is going to look like, and especially as a mother, that's really, really hard. And so that's something that I think that my swimming career and my faith throughout my swimming career helped teach me was there's nothing that worrying about the next day can do. There's only about being here and being grateful for today. And so that's still kind of how I try to wake up and live my life. And I let myself feel and have those anxious moments, but also kind of recognize them for what they are and know that my faith is in a higher place and that I just have to keep that faith.
And like Athletes in Action, a lot of the work you do to this day is about giving back. In 2015, you became an ambassador for the USA Swimming Foundation, supporting their cause to ensure children learn how to swim and be safer in and around water. As a mother to a toddler and an expecting mother, what is the importance of bringing greater awareness to this cause?
Yeah, well, it's really crazy. I mean, obviously being a swimmer, this is something I'm so passionate about, but there's 10 drownings a day in our country. Like it's truly an epidemic. And so a lot of people don't realize how severe the issue is, but it's the leading cause of unintentional death for children under the age of 4 years old. And I don't know how you guys feel, but whenever I pull up the news and there's a story about a young child drowning, it absolutely breaks my heart. And we found that swim lessons can reduce the risk of drowning by 88%. So it's not perfect, but it's a much better chance. And so a lot of what we do at the USA Swimming Foundation is we make sure that everyone has opportunity for those swim lessons. We don't want people to not have that opportunity because of where they live or because of their socioeconomic status. So we provide grants to different programs across the country to make sure that the children in those communities are getting access to swim lessons that they need to help prevent those drowning rates. So it's wonderful. We get to go and meet the sweetest kids in the whole world, and there's like nothing more encouraging than when they're absolutely terrified to get in the water to begin with. They don't even want to touch it, and by the end they're just having the time of their lives and they're kicking on a kickboard, and it's a really beautiful and powerful moment of if you just simply give a child an opportunity, what they can do with it.
And can you share with us a little bit more about what inclusivity in swim looks like to you? Because a large part of it is teaching young children how to swim, but there are also many other elements that involve encouraging people to swim and promoting them and helping them achieve these goals.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think when it comes to inclusivity, there's still a lot that we need to do within our sport. And again, I'm really thankful for ambassadors we have like Colin Jones and Simone Manuel and so many that are helping us understand that we need to have a more inclusive presence of both Black and Hispanic and non-white communities in our sport. And we want to, my dream, I want every girl to be able to watch the TV and see herself at the Olympics. Like that is what I want. And so that means we need to have that diversity. We need to have that inclusion. It's one of the reasons why I love the Paralympics so much, is because that's exactly what it is. It gives everyone a chance to look and see a version of themselves that they may not see all the time and say, they're doing something like that, why can't I do that? I'm seeing myself represented, and there's so much power in that. But in order to do that, we need to make sure that they're getting the opportunities that they need as well. So that's one of the reasons why I love working with the foundation so much, is our emphasis on that, because we need that representation. It's incredibly important.
And since retiring from swimming, you've taken on a myriad of projects, from your podcast to nonprofit work and content creation. What has been your most exciting professional opportunity these last few years?
That's a great question. Most exciting professional opportunity. Where's Hayes? What do you think? What was your answer? I know, it is. That's such a good one. So, when I received an award for the Laureate Sport for Good Foundation. So a lot of people in the States don't know what it is, but it's a nonprofit that was started by Nelson Mandela. and I find that a lot of people know who he is. So Nelson started the Laureus Foundation, and it's incredible. It essentially uses sport as a tool to change the world. So we're in over 260 countries, and we support children in their communities, and we use sport as a way to bring them out of poverty, discrimination, socioeconomic situations, to help give them better opportunities and better lives. So just this past month in October, my husband Hayes and I were in Tokyo with Naomi Osaka and several of the groups that she works with there called Play Academy, because Japan, for advanced economies in the world, ranks last when it comes to opportunities for young girls in sports, and because of gender norms and so many other reasons. And so Naomi Osaka and her foundation and what we do at Laureus support programs that encourage young girls to get involved in sport, because we know the power that can have on a young girl's confidence, on her growth, on her leadership, on her teamwork, and that can positively impact every single area of your life. So there's so much work we've been able to do with them. I've been to Sri Lanka with them, and it's just really beautiful to see the work that they're doing. They're here in the States, of course. I've gone to projects in Oakland, we've gone to projects in Chicago, and it's all just about using sport as a way to give young kids a better chance and more learning and growth opportunities. So that's definitely one that I'm super passionate about.
And as you said, a lot of the work that you do is in collaboration with athletes outside of swimming. So can you tell us a little bit more about the power of connection with athletes who might not share the same pool as you, maybe on a court or a field, but how you work together to amplify the causes you believe in?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just the power of coming together, right? Like, I think here, more than a lot of places, we understand the power of using our voices and what happens when you can come together and the difference that that can make. And it just all goes back to women being able to support women. And we've been able to talk to just so many different people, and I've been so fortunate to meet and become friends with so many different athletes throughout all different sports. And again, our journeys are all a little bit different, and yet we can all relate to each other on some level or another, and there's just this incredible mutual respect for each other. And it's so beautiful to share your stories and really hear what one another is doing. But someone I look up to so much is Allison Felix. And when I think of what I want my legacy to look like, she is like the absolute dream of what she has done for starting her own agency that just supports women and giving them opportunities, to creating, helping create the Village nursery where nursing mothers and mothers that are Olympians can actually bring their children into the Olympic Village. Like, how was that not a thing before? And she's making all of this happen, and I just think it's so powerful. So coming together, and I think the importance of branching out, because that's when your impact is going to be its greatest, is you want to try and drop as big of a rock as possible into the pond, and we're all each just a pebble, but if we can bring in other pebbles and slowly grow into a boulder, it's going to make those ripple effects so much more powerful.
Thank you again for all of those insights. So for the sake of time, I wanted us to end off with something a little more fun. I've got some rapid fire questions for you, so give us the first answer that comes to mind. And yeah, all right. Any rituals or routines before competing?
Yes. Okay, I have to explain it, so I'm sorry this is not rapid fire. So I would get so excited before I raced that I couldn't listen to pump up music or anything that had a good beat to it, because I would physically explode. So I would have to listen to music that calmed me down. So I would listen to Frank Sinatra before I swam.
Awesome. And what's your snack of choice before a race?
Before a race, honestly, not too much, because you don't want anything sitting super heavy, so I think I would just do a banana and peanut butter. That was kind of my go-to. But afterward, there's a lot more options.
Actually, I'll throw this in then. Favorite snack after a race?
Yogurt Park.
Since we know you do backstroke best, What is your least favorite stroke to swim?
Oh, breaststroke. Absolutely breaststroke. Yeah, no. Sorry, breaststrokers are weird. I love you guys. They're special. They are. I wish I knew how to do it better. I could never figure it out. Never. But here's the thing, our daughter hates floating on her back. And my husband was a backstroker as well. And we're like, girlfriend, if you're a breaststroker, we will be of zero use to you. Like, you've got to figure this back thing out.
What is your favorite Olympic sport to watch that isn't swimming?
Beach volleyball. I love beach volleyball. Obviously, gymnastics was amazing. But there's other things I got into this summer. I thought fencing was so cool. That I love fencing. The venue that it was in was amazing. And then I, like everyone else on the planet, am just a massive Alana Maher fan. So I got super into watching rugby, which I was actually introduced to here. I went to my first rugby games when I was a student here, and just thought that, and we had several members of AIA that played on the rugby team, and I just think that sport is insane. Those athletes are like blow your mind incredible, so I really enjoy watching that too.
And my last question is, who is your inspiration?
Okay, well, it's kind of a mix. I've always said my mom, which still remains true. My mom is the cutest human alive. She's 5'4" and just the most precious thing. But she always is just, she'll forever be my best friend. She's just the most amazing woman I know. But I will now also say, truly, my daughter. Like, she is who I want to be when I grow up. She is so full of joy and love, and she's so friendly to everyone that she meets, and she's so kind, and she just makes the most out of every moment of life. And to get to see that every day is just, she's such a good reminder of finding the beauty in the smallest of things and having the appreciation for it. So my mom and my daughter.
All right, thank you so much, Missy, for all of your insights. We really appreciate it. So now we'll be moving on to audience Q&A. We have a pretty good amount of time for that. So if you have a question, just raise your hand. We'll have a forum member come to you with a microphone.
Please don't be shy.
Coming from a collegiate athlete myself, what would you say to your former collegiate athlete self?
I would say that as amazing as your time in collegiate athletics is, there's still so much more to look forward to. I think there's kind of that period where your time as a collegiate athlete is coming to an end, and it can be really scary that this thing that was a part of your life for so long maybe isn't going to be anymore. And so I think just that encouragement that there is still so much more to look forward to, and what you have learned throughout your journey and what sport has taught you is going to apply so well into so many different areas of your life. And there might be a learning period there where you can figure out exactly how to do that, but just trust that you have a lot that you have learned that you're going to take with you that's going to give you so much advantage, and that's really going to help you succeed and be happy at whatever you do next.
Thank you.
What sport did you do?
I'm on the swim team.
Amazing. What stroke were you?
I'm a backstroker.
My girl. All right, we're good.
Hello, thank you so much for sharing and everything that you talked about today. And also welcome home. I'm also I'm an alum. She's still on this team, class of 2022, but now I have the opportunity of being a mental health professional, and that's something that is full circle for me. And so my question for you today is, what would you say to coaches, parents, and or athletes who don't quite understand how working on your mental health will actually help you reach your highest potential as an athlete?
That's a really good question. I think as an athlete, you want what I would say to them now, or what an athlete should say to them?
What you would say to them now?
What I would say to them now. I think a little bit of what I touched on, but helping them understand that their physical performance means absolutely nothing if they are not mentally healthy. That as a coach, as a parent, as a trainer, you can have them in the best shape possible, but if they are not healthy, and if they don't have the good mindset, and if they are not confident, and if they don't feel like they're safe, none of that matters. And so they should be treating mental health with just as much priority as they are treating their physical health. So going into that understanding that yes, those 4 to 6 hours a day that you are training, that you are in the weight room, that you're in the pool, that you're on the field, how are you matching that with how they're feeling as human beings? And are you seeing them that way? Are you seeing them not just as the people that are in the water on the field, but as the people who are people and that have emotions and feelings, that have so much else going on in their life? Because the second you start to see them as that and start to support that, it's going to positively impact every area of their life.
Thank you so much.
What else, guys? Right here? Throw it out there. Why not?
I've only been waiting to ask you this, but haven't. Ever since you were in high school, I have wondered about that period of time when you were both an Olympian and swimming high school dual meets. I remember a little controversy in the newspapers. I'm wondering what it was like for you, good and bad.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was another experience I had coming off of London, where it was a really hard lesson on how to make everyone happy. I had swum all 3 years of my high school, so in my mind it was like, of course I'm going to swim my senior year with my high school. Like, this is my last chance to be with these teammates and with these coaches. And unfortunately just broke my heart that it just got construed by other people, and they felt like it was me trying to not let other people win, which was just the furthest reason ever that I would do something. But I talked to my coaches, I talked to my teammates, and I said, are you guys okay with me swimming? Do you want me here? And you know, those were the people that I cared about the most. So even though it seems strange, nothing was different. Like, yes, I had gone to the Olympics that summer, but at the same time, to those girls, to that team, I had always just been Missy, and that was who I was when I came back. So of course Missy was gonna swim her senior year with them. So it was definitely a little bit different, and I did feel really bad that some people weren't seeing it from that same viewpoint. But I'm so thankful that I had that last year with them, because I never got to swim with any of those girls again. So it was beautiful, but that I do remember that state championship that year was pretty crazy, but a beautiful way to end my time off there.
What's your 200 back race plan?
Ooh, love it, we're getting technical. All right, 2 back race plan. The most important 50 in a 200 is your third. Always your third. So first 50, ride the adrenaline. You're gonna be feeling great. Second 50, my challenge was not to pull back too much, because you get a little bit nervous that there's still a good bit more to go. So I really had to focus on keeping my rhythm, not dropping off too much. And then my third 50, I would just lay on my legs, and I would really, really work my legs for that third 50. And then the fourth, like, I love how we try and like create a race plan as if it's not gonna hurt and we're not gonna die. Like, we know that's gonna happen no matter what, so we might as well be happy at the end of it. So fourth 50 was always just hold on for dear life and finish with whatever you had left. But always focus on the third 50, because that's also what's gonna make the biggest difference in your placement in the race. Third 50 will make or break you.
Thank you, Missy, for your time. I'm so glad. I remember when you first won your Olympic gold, actually, I wrote you a message. Yeah, my father convinced me, and I got a response back from you, so that had to be one of the most touching moments in my life. So glad you're going to speak with us. My question for you is, you mentioned earlier you were a dual citizen of Canada and the U.S., so I was curious if you ever got like an option to compete for Canada, and if so, what made you decide to play for the U.S.?
Yeah, so I could have competed for Canada at any time. I was born actually in Pasadena. And so for me, having been born and raised in the US, I've just always been American. Like, that is just always where I felt like my loyalty lies, and I love that I have this special connection to Canada, because I think it's a beautiful country with beautiful people in it. But to me, I just couldn't ever imagine competing with anything other than an American flag on my cap. So even though I knew that this was gonna be the most competitive environment in the world to do that, that was how I wanted to do it. Like if I was gonna be an Olympian, it was gonna be for the US, or I wasn't gonna be an Olympian at all. I wanted to hear our national anthem. Oh, that's nice. Oh, good. Sorry, that's a lot of running.
Hi, I'm such a big fan. And being being a 5-time Olympic champion, was there any of your favorite Olympic winning moment? And my second question is, I'm from Malaysia, where we've never even come close to winning an Olympic medal in swimming. So do you have any plans, maybe to coach countries like Malaysia, where we have a lot to work on in swimming, competitively? Yeah. Thank you.
Of course. Okay, first part of that question. Favorite Olympic memories. I think for me, relays were always my favorite part of the sport. And so getting to share those moments of being on the podium with 3 of my best friends were always the most magical moments for me. So when I look back on my time at the Olympics, it was always when I actually got to share those moments with my teammates that were the most special. As for coaching in Malaysia, not currently on the to-do list, but now that you've mentioned it, I will pop it on there and we will see what we can do.
All right, my students are probably going to grow at this girl here. How much emphasis did you put into your underwater dolphin teams when you left? And how long did you work on it? And how hard was it when you first started to do it?
I love the responses. I never worked on them at all. I don't believe in working on underwaters. Okay, now for the actual answer. That was my weakest link. That was the part of my backstroke that was the worst, and that was why I was so much better as a long course backstroker than I was short course, because I had such fewer walls to work off of. Short course backstroke is not even backstroke anymore, it's just underwater kicking. You watch NC2As and you watch Gretchen Walsh, are you kidding me? It's unbelievable. So I think specifically, really important for short course. If you are doing underwaters, they need to be a key thing that you are focused on and getting better at. They're still important with long course, but I got to a point where I would start to stay after practice every day and do my underwater 25s because I knew that was something that I needed to work on. But it goes for anything. If there's a weakness, if you know there's something you need to improve on, only way to get better at it is to keep working at it. And yes, it was hard.
What were some of your favorite backstroke drills that helped you work on your backstroke?
My favorite one there is purpose to it, but mainly it just looks awesome, is swimming with a water bottle on your forehead. That's one of my favorite ones. It's a party trick. Everyone thinks it's so cool. But another one that I would really work on was, especially towards the end of my career, I started to focus more on my rotation coming from my shoulders and less from my hips. Because I found that if I rotated too much with my hips, I would kind of start rocking back and forth, and my motion of my backstroke would be a lot less fluid. So I just started doing a lot of kicking on my back, where I'd really focus on the rotation of my shoulders and really engaging my core to keep my hips more still. And that, I think, really helped with my overall rhythm and kind of helped me find my body line and my position in the water really well.
Just to reiterate, thank you again for coming out tonight. As you mentioned before, how all-consuming swimming can be, during your career and even afterwards, how do you balance finding the space for the athletic part of your life with being a mother and also your future identities? Because we evolve over our life, so what is that balance like having such an important part of your life, having happened when you're in your teenage years, in your 20s, but also the future being just as important, raising your kids and being a mother and finding out what those next steps are?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was, I'm gonna say it was Maya Angelou that had this quote, which I'm not gonna say it perfectly, but the essence of it is that we're all juggling so many different things, right? And so we all associate ourselves with so much that's going on in our lives. And so you're juggling all these balls, and really the trick is knowing which ones are made of plastic and which ones are made of glass. Because we're gonna drop some, right? We're all human, we're not perfect. But if you know what your glass are, what your priorities are, you keep those in the air. It's okay if a plastic one drops every now and then. That's gonna happen. And I feel like that's something I really took from my swimming career of, yes, there are these other things going on, and understanding that your priorities are gonna change over time, right? Like, for even taking NC2As, for example, like the week of NC2As, swimming was the priority. The week of finals, school was the priority. You know, our practices were optional. Our coaches understood, like, this is not what you need to be focused on right now. It's your exams, it's your papers. And that's how life is, right? You may have those one or two priorities that will stay the same, but other than that, things are gonna shift and change a little bit. So allow yourself to be flexible in letting your priorities change depending on what's going on in your life, but stay true, know what's most important, and stay focused on that, and then don't be too hard on yourself when some of the smaller things slip through. She all shy at first, and now.
Okay, this is gonna be a little of a controversial question.
Oh, great, I love those.
Okay, do you think underwater roll should be shortened, at least for short course, down to 7 meters or 10 meters from 15 meters?
No, that'd be awkward. I just think we're stuck with it at this point, but I really do think that, I mean, if you want to be a successful short course swimmer, your underwaters are just a massive part of that. Like, there's just no denying that now. So I'm quite thankful I'm retired, I'll just say that much.
Hi, I love your podcast series that you have, and I wanted to know who your favorite guest was that you've had on, and then separately maybe who was the guest that surprised you the most.
Ooh, that's a great question. All right, let me see. Favorite guest? I'd say it's probably a tie between Caleb Dressel and Reagan Smith. I love being vulnerable, so I love when other people are vulnerable, and I felt like they were both just so open about their journeys and what they learned and the things that they went through, so I loved having those conversations with them. And in terms of surprising, we had Kaylee McEwen on, and she is one of the Australian, she's one of the top swimmers in the world, but she's Australian. And again, I feel so fortunate that I get the chance to get to know these athletes. Like, how else would I sit down and have an hour-long conversation with Kaylee McEwen than on the podcast? And so just like getting to know them and getting to know their personality, like that part of it is just so fun for me. But I always learn so much, even if it's someone that I've known for 10 years. So it's been an amazing part. It's really hard to choose though. I think this is a spoiler alert, but we're gonna have my husband do an interview and he's gonna be on it. So I'm calling that that's gonna be my new favorite.
As a young swimmer, like watching you in London, like London was a very core memory growing up, and I especially still associate the song "Call Me Maybe" and those Olympics. So I was curious, like, what your favorite song is now, and like maybe what role music played in your training.
So pretty much all I listen to now is Trolls. So anything from the Trolls album is great. PJ Masks and Spidey with Friends are also fire. That is truly what I listen to. That is anything my daughter wants is what we listen to. She actually has, I just told Hayes this the other day, our car rides have been us repeatedly over and over singing A Whole New World. But I am Aladdin, and she is Jasmine, naturally, but we duet the whole song. And she'll just want us to start over and over again. So she has actually brought, I mean, I don't know if I've ever gotten so much joy from music than what my daughter brings me. And when I was training, like I said, I was a little different in that I already had so much like excitement and energy that especially in the pool and swimming, I love talking. Like I just love being present and being with my teammates. I would say it was more in the gym and like strength sessions that I kind of relied a little bit more on the music to sort of get me in the right headspace for things. But now it's just full on whatever my 3-year-old wants to listen to.
This might be a stupid question, but I'm just wondering, did you ever just like swim, like chill in the pool for fun, like not swim really fast?
Not a stupid question at all. We totally do. So we actually just got, I don't know if you have ever seen one, but it's called an endless pool. So it's a pool that has a current at the top, so you just swim against the current. So you're swimming in one place. It sounds ridiculous, but you're swimming in one place, and we just got one of those in our backyard, which has been awesome. So my husband is actually a triathlete, and so he uses that a lot for his training, and then our daughter obviously loves it. But I do, if I swim now, it's always just super slow and easy, but that's one of the things I love about our sport so much is I'll be able to do it for the rest of my life. Like it is such a good exercise, it is so low impact. So now it's one of my favorite things to do on my recovery days is just go and do a really easy workout, not worry about intervals, wear fins the whole time, and there's still that like level of peacefulness to it, and it really, yeah, it's that same experience of I leave the pool feeling better than I did when I got in.
So it's like a treadmill.
Exactly, yes, it's a swimming treadmill, 100%, yeah.
So what's your like favorite like race? Oh, what's your favorite like stroke to race other than backstroke?
Freestyle.
And
Which is pretty much the most basic answer from a backstroker you're ever gonna get.
And also, what are some of the most common feelings when you like first dive into water when you're racing?
Oh my gosh. I think those are some of the most nerve-wracking moments, right? But it's also, I think that actually might be my favorite moment. Because like behind the blocks, right, is when you're feeling all of those nerves, like you have all those thoughts running through your head. And then for me, it's like the second I hit the water, they were gone, right? Like it was just like, they just almost disappeared. So it was like, okay, we're in it. Like we've started, we're going, like now we can just focus on this. So I actually loved that moment so much of like kind of had all that tension built up, all that nerve, all that anxiety, and then you hit the water and you're like, oh, wait, I know how to do this. Like I can do this, I've been practicing for this, I'm ready for this, and kind of all that dissipates and you can just really focus on swimming your race.
Yeah. How did you like ever figure out? We were wondering how you ever figured out how to do a backstroke start like properly.
Oh, a lot of practice. A lot of practice. The wedge helps a lot. I've slipped so much before the wedge. I would do tons of video. So, and it doesn't have to be fancy. Like you guys can literally film each other after practice and then go on YouTube and watch backstroke starts. Watch Natalie do a backstroke start. She's the most beautiful backstroke start I've ever seen in my life. Watch Reagan do them. But I think watching them, talking to your coaches about them, and then watch yourself, which can feel kind of awkward, but truly, like when you can watch technique videos of yourself and literally see the way that you're doing something and trying to fix it, that can be some of the best real-time feedback you can get.
Do you miss being in the Olympics and swimming in big events as now you're a mom raising kids? Do you look back and miss that?
I do. I definitely do. But it's a good missing it. Like, I don't miss it as that I wish I was still doing it, because I know I'm exactly where I'm meant to be and I wouldn't change anything. Like, being a mom was also my greatest goal in life and dream in life, and being a wife and having this beautiful family. So I wouldn't change anything, but of course there are days when I miss it. And being in Paris this summer and watching it in person definitely had those kind of teary moments of reflecting on how wonderful those experiences were and how incredible and how fortunate I was to have had them. So it's a perfect balance of, yes, of course I miss it, but I also know I'm exactly where I'm meant to be.
Do you have like any tips on getting through a kick set?
No, I don't. I'm a puller, so 0 tips for a kick set. Do it with your friends. It's my only advice.
How did you handle not being able to swim because of your injury?
Yeah, so hard. So there was a couple. I had a couple injuries throughout my career before the one that kind of finally took me out. I think finding other ways that I could still feel like I was improving was super important. So even if that looked different, so I remember here after I got my shoulder surgery, I would go into practice with Dave and I would swim with one arm because I couldn't use the other one, but I wanted to feel like I was doing something, or I would kick. I would do a lot of kick sets. Or I remember when my husband, he got an eye injury his last year of swimming college, and he sat on a stationary bike right outside the pool every single day while his teammates practiced, because you still, I think, want to feel like you are a part of the team and like you're improving. So if you, during your recovery process, can kind of keep your encouragement of yourself so you can still feel like you're a part of the team, it might look a little bit different. Maybe you think about how you can support your other teammates, and then you're also still trying to improve in other areas with just thinking about how you're going to have to modify. And that was a huge part of what helped me get through it. And giving yourself grace, because I think when we go through healing, whether it's physical or linear, or physical or mental, we expect it to be linear. Of like, okay, we get injured, and then we're just gonna keep getting better and better and better, and that's just not how it works. So giving yourself grace on the days where you feel like you're maybe falling back or not making the progress that you want to see.
Thank you.
Go Bears. I'm a master's coach here in the Bay Area, and these are my master's swimmers here, some missing. But we wanted to know what your thoughts were about perhaps joining my team.
I am a registered master's swimmer, so I would be honored to join a practice. You guys can count me in. I do still wear fins the whole time, though. It's the best part about being a master's swimmer.
Any plans on officiating your daughter's meets?
You know, I would love to be involved as much as she would want. My husband actually is the head coach of the summer league team, and it's just beautiful to see how much joy he gets from that, and it's so wonderful at that grassroots level. Like, the sport is just so pure, and there's so much joy in it. So whatever she decides to do, I hope to be involved in some way.
Hi, in 2012 I was 10 years old, and during the Olympics I was at a Nike swim camp, and we were all cheering on. And after watching you, that's when I decided I wanted to be a backstroker. So I hopped in the pool the next day at camp, and you had your nose plug. And for me, my whole swimming career, the nose plug was very synonymous with Missy Franklin.
Because I couldn't do underwater.
I could never get it down. It messed up my breathing patterns. So I was wondering if the nose plug was something you always did, or if that you had to train that.
Yeah, it was something that I always did. I'm not going to do it because I'm going to look ridiculous, but there's some swimmers that can literally curl their top lip to cover their nostrils. So when they're on their back in the water, it prevents water from going up their nose. I'm not physically capable of doing that. So I would wear a nose clip, and also to me, as we talked about, there was just one thing that helped me with my underwaters, because it was one less thing that I needed to think about. I didn't have to worry about blowing air out, I didn't have to worry about getting water in my nose, I could just focus on my kicks and doing what I needed to do. It's becoming a little bit more popular. Who started wearing one? Did Ryan start wearing one? Right? I think Murph started to wear one. Copycat. But it's totally, and like he didn't wear one for the first half of his career, so I think it's, some people it works great, some people it doesn't, but that's the fun thing about trying new stuff and seeing if it works for you, and it's okay if it doesn't.
Thank you.
Hi, Missy. So yeah, when you started out in 2012, that's when I was 7, and I just first got into swimming. But my parents are Cal alumni, so you're a pretty big part of that 2012, 2016. You certainly were impressive to me. I apologize, I'm a breaststroker.
I'll let it slide.
But yeah, you were definitely, I distinctly remember my father talking about you a lot. By the way, when I was coming here, he said, just tell her I love her. So, you got it.
I love him as well.
But I was just wondering, you talked about the pressure that you faced, I guess, worrying about disappointing people. Now you're specifically focusing on like younger generations of swimmers. Was that something that was on your mind while you were competing? Like especially for girls, you talked about wanting in the future for every single girl to watch the Olympics and be able to see themselves in the water. But was that something that was on your mind while you were swimming, in addition to perhaps, I don't know, just the country and like, you know, sponsors and things like that? Was that something that you were thinking about?
I think it was always in the back of my mind. Obviously, when you're still competing and training at that level, it is such a huge part of where your focus is at. But I will never forget that the London Olympics, the like slogan for it was on all the signs everywhere, was inspire a generation. And I remember being 17 in London and seeing that and being like, this is why we're here. Like, yes, we're here to compete and it would be great if we could win a medal, but what we're ultimately here to do is to be on the screen so that a 7-year-old watching can see that and decide that this is what she wants to do one day. So I think that that was always at the foundation of every decision I made throughout my career, is essentially, is this going to make me a good role model, and is this going to help me inspire other people? And then when I retired, I was then able to put like all my effort and force into that, which was a really fun transition. But I was able to have that practice, and it helped guide me in a lot of the decisions I made while I was still competing, to just what's the impact I'm going to have, because all of my records will get broken, all of my times are going to get beaten, but what can I have that's going to stand the test of time? The legacy I leave, the way that I make people feel, how they remember how I treated them. That's the stuff that matters the most to me. And so that was something that I was able to carry with me during my career and then now after it as well.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
One more round of applause for Missy.
Wow, that was amazing. I think I can speak for everyone when I say that. Thank you so much, Missy and Miriam, for that incredibly insightful conversation, and to all the audience for your thoughtful and wonderful questions as well. I also want to give a shout out to Erica for running around with the mic as well. Shout out Erica. So as a token of appreciation to our speakers, we at the Berkeley Forum like to give a handmade poster that's created by our design committee. And so today's poster was created by Allison Lynn. Shout out Allison. So with that, I would like to invite our event managers, Carolyn and Erica, back up on stage to give the poster to Missy. you, Carolyn and Erica. Yeah. So for a bit of background, the Berkeley Forum is a non-profit undergraduate student organization, meaning, what just happened? Meaning all of our events are planned and hosted entirely by our team. So because our members put in a great deal of dedication and hard work, we would like to recognize the following individuals for their contributions. First of all, our event managers, Carolyn and Erica. Moderator, Miriam. Tech and Multimedia Lead, Vic. Events Lead, Ermi.